creating the detail page like this works until we realize that we probably would have more than one news item on our news site. It would be very realistic that index.js in the news folder should output a list of news items, and then we can click those individual items and we're then taken to the detail pages with the concrete content for the news item we selected. So we use the same page over and over again for different news items, for different content. We would probably fetch the concrete content from some database when a user visits this detail page and then display it on the screen. So it's the same component technically, but with different content. And that's of course a totally realistic, I would even say very common scenario. So hard coding the identifier like something dash important like this in the file name is not very realistic. Instead, we want to create a so-called dynamic page where the path segment, the concrete value in the path, can be dynamic. So that it's not just /news /something important, but also /something else or /this course is great, whatever. So that this would be the identifier of a news item, and we have a lot of different identifiers, and we add new use all the time, but we always load the same page no matter what the concrete value here is, but then inside of the page we simply have access to that value in the path so that we can fetch the proper data. And that is something we can implement with dynamic paths. For that, we change the file name here to a different file name, and we use a special syntax which will be understood by Next.js. We use square brackets here in the file name in front of the extension. If you have square brackets in your file name like this tells Next.js that this will be a dynamic page, so that it should be loaded for different values in your path. And then you can add an identifier between those square brackets where the identifier name is totally up to you. Something like news ID, for example, like this. But this, again, is up to you. But you need those square brackets. This then tells Next.js that this page will be loaded for different values. So for example, for something important after /news, but also for any other identifier. And then in the next step, I will show you how you can get access to the concrete value entered here and how you can use that. But let's get there step by step. If we now save this again, if I load this page for /news /this course is great, I see the detail page, but I also see it for something else or anything else we enter after /news. So that is how we can add such a dynamic path here. And that is another key feature of Next.js. It's a feature that allows us to build truly dynamic and flexible websites with Next.js. But how can we now extract the entered path value inside of the component so that we can, for example, then fetch the correct news item from a database, let's say, when a user visits this page?